social media platforms on Facebook at Aloore Radio, Twitter and Instagram at Aloore Radio. You can also subscribe on our YouTube page on Aloore Radio. Make sure you click on the notification bell so you know when we are live. This is Aloore Radio, the voice of Oyo State.
Very wonderful morning to you out there. You're welcome to Newspaper Review on Aloore Radio. We are transmitting from GSM studio at the Ministry of Information and Orientation, Secretariat Agodi, Ibadan. My name is Olukemi Omotosho. I have with me two Nigerian dailies, the Nigerian Tribune and the Nation newspaper. The first story I'm going to take is from the front page of the Nigerian Tribune, and it says, Peace Accord for off-season polls, seriousness, commitment of candidates in doubt. That is coming from Abdusalam on page 14 of the Nigerian Tribune. And on Olubadan, Ladoja, Ibadan Obas Old Advisory Council meeting. And the writer says, I bear no grudge against anybody. Ladoja explain why he challenged Makinde orders in court. The story can be found on page 11. Still on the Nigerian Tribune, I have, after 151 days in detention, court admits Emefiele to bail. That story can be found on page 11. And on page 17 of the Nigerian Tribune, Afenifere criticizes NAS over purchase of 160 million SUV for lawmakers. And I have another one that says, why we can't increase electricity tariff now, federal government. That is a good one coming from page 7 of the Nigerian Tribune. While I have Tinubu signs 2.17 trillion naira supplementary budget. The story can be found on page 17 of the Nigerian Tribune, with 30% for defense and security, 35% dedicated to the provision of critical infrastructure to be allocated to works, FCT, housing and urban development. With that, I'll quickly go to the front page of the Nation newspaper. And the first story I'm going to take says, Senate, House agreement raises students' loan to 10 billion naira. With the rider that says, yacht items dropped as President signs 2.17 trillion naira supplementary budget. Senate launches probe. The story can be found on the front page and page 4 of the Nation newspaper. NLC strike fails to hold in Imo. Offices open. Airports in operation. Power cuts enters day 7. That story can be found on the front page and page 5 of the Nation newspaper. And still on power minister threatens discuss GenCos with license revocation. Operators to sign performance bond. That story can be found on the front page and page 4 of the Nation newspaper. And Emefiele out of custody after securing bail. The story can be found on page 4 of the Nation newspaper. On budget, 26 contractors bolt away with 8.6 billion naira mobilization cash. That story is on page 7 of the Nation newspaper. And there's a pictorial representation of the president signing the supplementary budget at the presidential villa in Abuja. Is flagged with ministers, 7 ministers around him. If you're interested in that story, you can check the front page of the Nation newspaper. With that, we'll go on a short break to be back for details. Please stay tuned.
Let us take you on a journey across continents as we bring you latest news, captivating stories, and diverse perspectives from around the globe. From breaking news headlines to fascinating features, discover the stories that shapes our society and the voices that demand to be heard. It's Newspaper Review on Aloore Radio. From the great city of Ibadan, your number one online radio station. We are the voice of your state. Aloore Radio.
Welcome back to Newspaper Review on Aloore Radio. You can like and share on Facebook at www.facebook.com/Aloore Radio. On YouTube it is Aloore Radio. You can download on our website www.alooreradio.com. You can call for advert placement or inquiry on 09039 853731. I repeat 09039 853731. I would like to take my first story in details from page 6 of the Nigerian Tribune. It says, all Naira denomination remains legal tender, CBN. The Central Bank of Nigeria, CBN, has reiterated that all denominations of banknotes it has issued remains legal tender and should not be rejected by anyone as stipulated in Section 25 of the CBN Act 2007. Also, the Apex Bank restated that there are sufficient notes across the country for all normal economic activities, stressing that every banknote issued by the CBN remains legal tender. The bank said it has directed all its branches across the country to continue to issue different denominations of old and redesigned banknotes in adequate quantities to deposit money banks for onward circulation to customers. The CBN highlighted this due to reports of anxiety among some members of the public over the legality or otherwise of old Naira bank notes. All Naira denominations remain legal tender, CBN. That is coming from page 6 of the Nigerian Tribune. And of course, I have another one that says, Customs inaugurates committee to evacuation of overtime containers from seaports. The Controller General of Customs, Adewale Adeniyi, has met with seaport terminal operators, truck owners, licensed customs agents, and other essential stakeholders within the port environment over the evacuation of overtime cargoes and implementation of a 48 hours custom clearance process at the nation's ports. The Customs CG also announced during the meeting that the formulation of a committee which will include government agencies, representatives from terminal operators and shipping lines that will manage the process of removing overtime containers from the nation's ports. In a statement issued on Wednesday by the Customs National Spokesman Abdullahi Maiwada, the Customs CG during the event expressed the mission to fulfill the government's goal of decongesting the port by expediting the removal of containers that have lingered for an extended period of time. If you are interested in that story, you can of course turn to page 6 of the Nigerian Tribune. Customs inaugurates committee for evacuation of overtime containers from seaports. And I had this one, a very serious one. Fuel queues will continue to surface except National Trustees, Nigerian Union of Petroleum and Natural Gas Workers, NUPENG, Mr. Salmon Oladiti, has identified factors crucial for a permanent solution to recurring fuel queues and increasing cost of pump price of fuel. Speaking with the Nigerian Tribune, Oladiti attributed the recurring fuel scarcity to the non-functional refineries, instability in the naira to dollar exchange rate, a huge reliance on importation of refined products, bad roads, dollarization of nation's economy, and activities of smugglers. Though he noted that the government attributed the current scarcity to the naira to dollar rate to import refined crude oil products in the country, Oladiti said lasting solution to fuel scarcity is for the nation's refinery to work to their capacities. If you're interested in that story, you can turn to page 7 of the Nigerian Tribune. Fuel queues will continue to surface except, and I have another one coming from that same page. It's on electricity. No plan to increase electricity tariff now. That is coming from the federal government. Despite industry players' call for a cost-reflective tariff, the federal government on Wednesday said it cannot approve tariff increase due to the country's current economic woes. The multi-year tariff order methodology gives room for biannual review of tariff with consideration to inflation, interest rate, foreign exchange, while major reviews are carried out every 5 years when all of the inputs are reviewed with stakeholders. In July 2023, the electricity distribution companies discussed had made attempts to increase tariff, thus filing an application for rate review with the Nigerian Electricity Regulatory Commission (NERC). However, the Minister of Power, Chief Adebayo Adelabu, at an interactive session with journalists in Abuja on Wednesday, said although the government ought to have increased tariffs, which is a major cause of liquidity challenge, this was shelved. According to him, if the review is approved, Nigerians will pay double of the current rate. If you are interested in that story, you can turn to page 7 of the Nigerian Tribune. No plan to increase electricity tariff now, federal government. And I'll quickly go to page 11 of the Nigerian Tribune. Olubadan, Ladoja, Ibadan Obas Old Advisories Council meeting. The Ọ̀tún Olúbàdàn of Ibadan land, Senator Rashidi Ladoja, has ended rift with members of the Olubadan Advisory Council headed by the Olúbàdàn of Ibadan land, Ọba Senator Lekan Balogun. Nigerian Tribune gathered that his presence at the meeting of the council is sequel to series of meetings with other high chiefs, who describes his absence at the council meeting as a setback. The affected high chiefs said it is high time they came together for the progress of Ibadan land. It was gathered that Ladoja has not been attending council meetings since the installation of the 9 high chiefs of Ibadan land as Obas. Following the meeting, Ladoja in an interview said at the palace explained why he challenged the elevation of 9 high chiefs to the status of Obas in court. The former governor disclosed that his decision to challenge some decisions taken by the government and advisory council was not born out of personal interest, but to protect the revered traditionals too. If you are interested in that story, you can turn to page 11 of the Nigerian Tribune. Olubadan, Ladoja, Ibadan Obas Old Advisory Council meeting. And this one will interest you, coming from page 11. After 151 days in detention, court admits Emefiele to bail. Justice Olukayode Adeniyi of the High Court of Federal Capital Territory (FCT), sitting in Abuja, on Wednesday admitted the detained former governor of Central Bank of Nigeria (CBN), Godwin Emefiele, to bail pending his arraignment before the court. Emefiele had approached the court to enforce his fundamental right to freedom and joined the federal government Attorney General of the Federation (AGF), Executive Chairman, Economic and Financial Crimes Commission (EFCC), and the commission as respondents in the case. The judge granted bail to the embattled Emefiele after listening to arguments by parties in the case. If you're interested in the full gist of that story, you can turn to page 11 of the Nigerian Tribune. After 151 days in detention, Court admits Emefiele to bail. And of course, coming from page 14, peace accord for off-season elections. Seriousness, commitment of candidates in doubt. Abdulsalami. Chairman National Peace Committee, General Abdulsalami Abubakar, retired on Wednesday in Kogi State, expressed doubt on the seriousness and commitment on the part of candidates contesting the November 11 governorship elections in Kogi, Imo, and Bayelsa states. News Agency of Nigeria reports. Speaking at the signing of peace accord among 18 political parties featuring in the Kogi State governorship election on Saturday, Abdulsalami appealed to the conscience of the candidates. Some of the political parties that participated in the peace accord were the All Progressive Congress (APC), People's Democratic Party (PDP), the Social Democratic Party (SDP), Labour Party (LP), and the Action Alliance (AA). Others included the New Nigerian People's Party (NNPP), Action Democratic Congress (ADC), People's Redemption Party (PRP), Zenith Labour Party (ZLP), National Rescue Movement, and the Action Democratic Party (ADP), among others. Abdulsalami, represented by Cardinal John Onoyekon, urged the parties to abide by the accord during the election. He said he was beginning to have serious doubts on the seriousness and commitment on the part of candidates involved in the peace accord. He said, and I quote, "This is because it has become a ritual of signing with no fruitful results or meeting up the expectation of Nigerian citizens. The players should know that we can't be deceived over and over again." If you're interested in that story, you can turn to page 14 of the Nigerian Tribune. Peace accord for off-season elections. Seriousness, commitment of candidates in doubt. That is coming from Abdulsalami. And I have this story on crime page. Man dies while testing bulletproof charms in Bauchi. A 43-year-old man, Muhammadu Muritala, had died while testing bulletproof charm in Damawa village, Zaki local government area of Bauchi State. The incident, which was reported in a bulletin by the State Police Command, indicated that on October 31st at about 8:30 a.m., information was received from the officer in charge of Basali Police Outstation under Zaki Division that one Danladi Yao, 28, of Damawa village via Busali ward, Zaki local government area, reported that a native doctor had committed an offense. If you are interested in that story, you can turn to page 15 of the Nigerian Tribune. Man dies while testing bulletproof charm in Bauchi. Let me quickly go to the Nation newspaper, and I have the first story I'm going to read in details. Senate House agreement raises student loan to 10 billion naira. After harmonizing the 2.7 trillion naira 2023 supplementary budget, the Senate and the House of Representatives have raised the student loan appropriation to 10 billion naira. Both chambers dropped the controversial presidential yacht, for which 5 billion was budgeted. President Bola Ahmed Tinubu assured Nigerians after signing the budget into law yesterday that it will be judiciously utilized. If you are interested in that story, you can turn to the front page and page 4 of the Nation newspaper. Senate House agreement raises students' loan to 10 billion naira. And of course, coming from the front page, NLC strike fails to hold in Imo, offices open, airport in operation. The strike declared by organized labor failed to hold in Imo State yesterday. Protesting the assault on Nigerian Labour Congress NLC President Joe Ajaero last week, the NLC, and the Trade Union Congress TUC declared strike in Imo from midnight yesterday. They threatened to spread it nationwide from Tuesday if their demands were not met. And continue from page 5. It says, but the state secretariats along Port Harcourt Road, Owerri, government workers were seen at their various duty posts. Private companies, bank, transporters, and other categories of people went about their normal activities. If you are interested in that story, you can turn to the front page and page 5 of the Nation newspaper. NLC strike fails to hold in Imo. And I have another story coming from page 5 of the Nation newspaper. Tinubu led ministers orders to Saudi Africa. President Bola Ahmed Tinubu will depart Abuja today for Riyadh, Saudi Arabia, where he is scheduled to attend the Saudi Africa Summit. The summit holds tomorrow, according to a statement by the President's Special Advisor on Media and Publicity, Ajuri Ngelale. At the Saudi Africa Summit, the President will underscore Nigerians' commitment to attracting more foreign direct investment, FDI, and expanding business partnerships, which are strongly reinforced by his administration's ongoing domestic economic reforms. Participants at the summit will revolve around supporting joint actions, enhancing political coordination, addressing regional security threats, facilitating economic transformation through research, and the local development of new energy solutions. If you are interested in that story, you can turn to page 5 of the Nation newspaper. Tinubu leads ministers orders to Saudi Africa. And of course, this is coming from page 5 of the Nation newspaper. I'd already read that in the Nigerian Tribune. Hold, new Naira note remain legal tender, CBN affirms. The Central Bank of Nigeria, CBN, yesterday restated that all Naira denomination remains legal tender. It directed its branches to continue issuing adequate quantities of both old and redesigned Naira notes. CBN, in a statement by its Director of Cooperative Communications, Mr. Isa Abdul Mumin, said, and I quote, "Our attention has again been drawn to the report of a scarcity of cash across some major cities in the country, despite assurance of sufficient cash stock in all locations across the country. There have also been reports of anxiety among some members of the public over the legality or otherwise of old Naira banknotes." If you are interested in that story, you can turn to page 5 of the Nation newspaper. Old, new Naira notes remains legal tender, CBN affirms. And of course, coming from the page 4, Minister Naira clash over 5-year license renewal of Discourse and GenCos. The minister is satisfied with the performance of distribution companies Discourse and generation companies GenCos. Power Minister Adebayo Adelabu yesterday said they must sign performance bond with the government. According to him, failure to live up to the agreement could lead to license revocation. Adelabu spoke yesterday in Abuja during an interactive session with reporters. He added that an investigation will look into how the license of Discourse and GenCos were renewed for another 5 years unilaterally by the Nigerian Electricity Regulatory Commission (NEC) shortly before the inception of the Tinubu administration. The probe, according to him, will look into whether the extension was legal and contractually in order, insisting that the government has the power to revoke a license on the ground of non performance. Minister NEC clash over 5-year license renewal for discourse. The story can be found on the front page and continue from page 4 of the Nation newspaper. And of course, I have another story coming from page 24. It says, students ought to shun drug abuse. Wife of former Minister of Works and Housing, Dame Abimbola Fashola, has urged the youth to abstain from drug abuse and seek help by speaking up to counselor if addicted to drugs. Mrs. Fashola, who was the keynote speaker, said that this at the second edition of inter-secondary school debates on drug abuse organized by Nigerian Youth Parliament, Lagos Central Senatorial District. She said, and I quote, "You should never take drugs, and if you have ever attempted to do so or know someone who has acquired this bad habit, you should speak to them to seek help by speaking to a counselor or therapist, and to stop if they can help themselves before it's too late to receive help." The story can be found on page 24 of the Nation newspaper. Students ought to shun drug abuse. And of course, coming from page 28, I have Atiku rallies voters for PDP candidates in Kogi, Imo, Bayelsa. Former Vice President Atiku Abubakar has appealed to voters in Kogi, Imo, and Bayelsa states to vote candidates of the People's Democratic Party (PDP) in governorship elections coming up in the three states on Saturday. Atiku, in a statement on Wednesday, noted that although there was a groundswell of dissatisfaction and resentment about how the Independent National Electoral Commission (INEC) walked back on the promise of transparency in the last general election, such shortcomings should not be enough reason to give up on democracy. The candidates of the PDP in the last presidential election urged the electorate in the three states to derive wisdom in the immortal saying of a former US President James Monroe that the best form of government is that which is most likely to prevent the greatest sum of evil. Atiku rallies voters for PDP candidates in Kogi, Imo, Bayelsa State. And I have the last story I'm going to take. Tinubu appoints 20 federal commissioners for NPC. President Bola Ahmed Tinubu has appointed 20 federal commissioners for the National Population Commission (NPC). A statement issued in Abuja by Special Adviser on Media and Publicity, Ajuri Unge Aleli, said 9 of the federal commissioners were appointed for a second term of office. If you are interested in that story, you can turn to page 29 of the Nation newspaper. Tinubu appoints 20 federal commissioners for NPC. And with that, we've come to the end of today's newspaper review on Aloore Radio. We are transmitting from GSM Studio at the Ministry of Information and Orientation, Secretariat Agodi, Ibadan. Of course, you can like and share on Facebook at www.facebook.com/Aloore Radio, and on YouTube it is Aloore Radio. Thanks for listening, and do have a wonderful day.